Hello, welcome to Study Circle. If you are preparing for any teaching exam, then this video is very useful for you. Today we are going to read class 11th standard political science chapter 7 nationalism. This video is the summary of this whole chapter. So this is very important for you to preparing for any teaching exam, and this video is intended for revision purpose only. So if you are revising anything, then the summary is very important for you. So without wasting any much time, let's start. Nationalism. So nationalism is a powerful force in the world, but it is difficult to arrive at agreement regarding the definition of terms like nation or nationalism. Nationalism during the last 2 centuries or more, nationalism has emerged as one of the most compelling of political creeds which has helped to shape history. Yeah. United people as well as divided them, it helped to liberate them from oppressive rules as well as been the cause of conflict and bitterness and the wars. So what are the phases of nationalism? In the 19th century, Europe, it led to the unification of number of small kingdoms into larger nation states, such as the present-day German and Italian states. A large number of new states were also founded in Latin America. Along with the consolidation of state boundaries, local dialects and local loyalties were also gradually consolidated into state loyalties and common languages. The people of the new state acquired a new political identity which was based on membership of the nation state. So the similar process of consolidation has taken place in India in the last century or more. So what contributed to the breakup of large empires? So such as the Austro-Hungarian and Russian empires in the early 20th century in Europe, as well as the breakup of his British, French, Dutch and Portuguese empires in Asia and Africa. Now the redrawing state boundaries. Since 1960, even apparently established nation-states have been confronted by nationalist demands put forward by groups or regions which include demands for separate statehood. Today, in many parts of the world, there are nationalist struggles that threaten to divide existing states, such as Quebecois in Canada, Basques in northern Spain, and the Kurds in Turkey and Iraq and the Tamils in Sri Lanka. Arab nationalism today may hope to unite Arab countries in Arab Union. So, what is nations and nationalism? It is commonly believed that the nations are constituted by groups who share certain features such as descent or language or religion or ethnicity. Many nations do not have common language or common religion, such as India has a large number of languages which are spoken in different regions and by different communities. Nation forming diverse group of society. The causes are different from the family, which is based on face-to-face relationship with each member having direct personal knowledge of the identity and character of others. Different from tribes and clans and other kingship groups. So ties of marriage and descent link members to each other so that even if one do not personally know all the members, one can trace the links and bind them. As a member of the nation, people may never come face to face with most of our fellow nationals, nor need to share ties of descent with them. Yet nations exist, are lived in and valued by their members. So what are incorporating nation? A nation is to great extent an imagined community held together by the collective beliefs, aspiration and imagination of its members. It is based on certain assumptions which people make about the collective whole with which they identify. So some of the assumptions about the nations are that shared beliefs. A nation is constituted by the shared belief. Nations are not things which exist independent of the beliefs that people have about them. So speak of the people as a nation. Not to make comment about their physical characteristics or behavior, it is referred to the collective identity and vision for the future of a group which aspires to have an independent political existence. A nation exists when its members believe that they belong together. So what are history behind it? That it embodies a sense of continuing historical identity. Nations perceive themselves as stretching back into the past as well as reaching into the future. They articulate for themselves a sense of their own history by drawing on collective memories, legends, historical records to outline the continuing identity of the nation. For example, nationalists in India invoked its ancient civilization and cultural heritage and other achievements to claim that India has had a long and continuing history as a civilization and that this civilization continuity and unity is the basis of the Indian nation. Territory. Nations identify with a particular territory. Imagine as one people sharing a common past and living together on a particular territory over a long period of time gives people a sense of their collective identity. Feeling homeland. The territory they occupied and the land on which they have lived has a special significance for them and they claim it as their own. Nations characterize the homeland in different ways. For example, as motherland or fatherland or holy land, the Jewish people, in spite of being dispersed and scattered in different parts of the world, always claim that their original homeland was in Palestine, the promised land. Also cause of conflict, since more than one set of people may lay claim to the same territory. Shared political ideals, a shared vision of the future and collective aspiration to have an independent political existence that distinguishes groups from nations. Members of the nation share a vision of the kind of state they want to build. They affirm a set of values and principles such as democracy, secularism, and liberalism. Political identity, these ideals represent the terms under which they come together and are willing to live together. In a democracy, it is shared commitment to set a political values and ideals that is most desirable basis of political community or a nation state. Within it, members of political community are bound by set of obligations which arise from the recognition of rights of each other as citizens. A nation is strengthened when its people acknowledge and accept their obligation to their fellow members. So, common political identity. Many people believe that a shared political vision about the state and society is not enough to bind individuals together as a nation. They seek instead a shared cultural identity, such as common language or common descent, but this can pose a threat to democratic values in ways like internally diverse religions. They have survived and evolved through a dialogue within the community. There exists within each religion a number of sects who differ significantly in their interpretation of the religious text and norms. If these differences are ignored and forced an identity on the basis of common religion, this is likely to create a highly authoritative and oppressive society. Most societies are culturally diverse. They have people belonging to different religions and languages living together in the same territory. No equal treatment. Imposing a single religious or linguistic identity as a condition belonging to a particular state would necessarily exclude some groups. It might restrict the religious liberty of the excluded group or disadvantage those who do not speak the national language. Due to above reasons, it is desirable to imagine the nation in political rather than cultural terms. Democracies need to emphasize and expect loyalty to a set of values that may be enshrined in constitution of the country rather than adherence to a particular religion, race, or language. Right to self-determination. Nations, unlike other social groups, seek the right to govern themselves and determine their future development. In making this claim, a nation seeks recognition and acceptance by international community of its status as a distinct political entity or state. Most often, these claims come from people who have lived together on a given land for a long period of time and who have a sense of common identity. It also linked to the desire to form a state in which the culture of group is protected, if not privileged. So, what are the issues of protection of culture and self-determination? Notion of one culture, one state, it gained acceptability in 19th century in Europe. It was employed while reordering state boundaries after World War I. The Treaty of Versailles established a number of small, newly independent states, but it proved virtually impossible to satisfy all the demand for self-determination. It led to mass migration of population across state boundaries, not possible to ensure one ethnic community in newly created state. Most states had more than one ethnic and cultural community living within its boundaries. These communities constituted a minority within the state were often disadvantaged. So, what is granted political recognition? The various groups who saw themselves as distinct nations and wanted the opportunity to govern themselves and determine their own future. Self-determination and national liberation movement. Nationalist movements in Asia and Africa maintained that political independence would provide dignity and recognition to the colonized people and also help them to protect the collective interest of their people. Most national liberation movements were inspired by the goal of bringing justice and rights and prosperity to the nation. However, it is proved almost impossible to ensure that each cultural group, some of whom claim to be distinct nations, could achieve political independence and statehood. As a result, migration of population, border wars, and violence have continued to plague many countries in the region. Dilemma in self-determination. For a strong and united nation, more and more people are beginning to realize that solution does not lie in creating new states, but in making existing states more democratic and equal. They need to ensure that people with different cultural and ethnic identities live and coexist as partners and equal citizens within the country. A nation state which does not respect the rights and cultural identity of minorities within the state would find it difficult to gain the loyalty of its members. So, what is nationalism and pluralism? Once the idea of one culture, one state was abandoned, it became necessary to consider ways by which different cultures and communities which can survive and flourish within a country. Many democratic societies today have introduced measures for recognizing and protecting the identity of cultural minority community living within their territory. So, kinds of group rights include constitutional protection for the language, culture, and religion, minority groups, etc. Sometimes identified communities also have the right to representation as a group in legislative bodies and other state institutions. Justification of such rights. They provide equal treatment and protection of law for members of these groups as well as protection for the cultural identity of the group. Group identity recognition. Different groups need recognition as a part of national community. The national identity has to be defined in an inclusive manner which can recognize the importance and unique contribution of all cultural communities within the state. Self-determination and independent statehood. Right to national self-determination does not include the right to independent statehood. It would be impossible that undesirable to grant independent statehood to every group that sees itself as a distinct cultural group or nation. It might lead to the formation of a number of states too small to be economically and politically viable, and it could multiply the problem of minorities. The right has now been reinterpreted to mean granting certain democratic rights for nationality within a state. What the right has now been reinterpreted to mean granting certain democratic rights for a nationality within a state. The claims of identity should not be allowed to lead to divisions and violence. Okay, identity should not be allowed to lead to divisions and violence. Multiple identities. In a democracy, the political identity of citizens should encompass the different identities which people may have. It would be dangerous if intolerant and homogenizing forms of identity and nationalism are allowed to develop. Tagore's critique of nationalism. Patriotism cannot be our final spiritual shelter. My refuge is humanity. I will not buy glass for the price of diamonds. I will never allow patriotism to triumph over humanity as long as I live. So this statement is by Rabindranath Tagore. Rabindranath Tagore was against colonial rule and asserted India's right to independence. He made a distinction between opposing Western imperialism and rejecting Western civilization. While Indians should be rooted in their own culture and heritage, they should not resist learning freely and profitably from abroad. He was very critical of narrow expression of nationalism that he found at work in parts of our independence movement. So, some interesting points of this chapter is that demands for self-determination in Basque. So what happened in Basque? That Basque is a hilly and prosperous region in Spain. It is recognized by Spanish government as an autonomous region within the Spanish Federation, but the leaders of Basque nationalist movement want a separate country. So what are the reasons for their demand is that their culture is very different from the Spanish culture. They have their own language that does not resemble Spanish at all. The hilly terrain makes the Basque region geographically distinct. Since the Roman days, the Basque region has its own autonomy, and Basque has own unique system for justice, administration, and finance. So this is the summary of this whole chapter, nationalism. This is only for revision purpose. So if you like this video, then do like, share, and subscribe. We need your support. Thank you.